my colleague journalist in Kenya to have a conversation with him, and it all has to do with the Kenyan elections and the citizens of Kenya waiting for the Electoral Commission of Kenya to declare who the winner of that contest is or would be. And so I am joined on the phone by Mr. Eric Latif. He is a colleague journalist and host of the Situation Room on Spice FM in Kenya to have an understanding and appreciation of the issues within the Kenyan context in terms of their elections. It's good to have you on the show this morning, Eric. I hope you're doing well.
Oh, yes, thank you. We're doing very well. It's good to have you to speak to you. Good morning.
All right, so paint a picture for us as to the situation in Kenya presently as Kenyans are waiting for the Electoral Commission to declare who the winner is, seeing that we have only tomorrow for them to do the declaration.
Indeed. Well, so Kenyans went to the ballot on Tuesday last week. That's the 9th of August. And so what happens is on the day itself, you go to vote, and then they close the ballots at about 5 p.m. Kenya time, or in some cases where there are issues that arose that may be led to late opening of the polls, then they will be given an extension. So by that evening, all polling stations had closed. And so then they started counting. And so we had 6 elections that take place at the same time. There's representation at the ward level. There are county governors. We have 47 counties. We have 47 senators. We have special seats for women. There are 47 across the counties as well. 290 constituency members of parliament. And then we also have one big one, which is the presidential election. All 6 elections taking place on the same day at the same time. So over the last 6 days, that's what we've been having, which is just the counting of the various elections and announcement of the winners, and then the transmission of the results from each region to Nairobi, the capital, for then the chairperson commission to announce the winner of the presidential ballot. That's what has been happening. The constitution gives him 7 days, the chairperson of the IEBC, 7 days within which to then announce the winner of the presidential election. And that is what we've been waiting on. So today is the 6th day. The deadline expires tomorrow. He's expected to announce the winner of the election today.
All right, so give us a sense of how the voting process went. Would you describe it as free and fair?
Well, several election observers, including an election observation mission from the African Union and the East African Community, has passed that verdict. They've said it was largely open, free, fair. There was no violence. There was no intimidation or anything that would then prohibit or disallow voters from being able to exercise their rights. There were several elections that were cancelled, however, for members of parliament in some 2 constituencies on the election date itself because of some discrepancies. There were also some elections that were cancelled for 2 county governors and 2 other members of parliament because of a mix-up of ballot papers. But those are the only ones. So we have 5 elections that are going to take place a bit later. But by and large, very many observers have said it went on smoothly on the day of the voting and the counting since.
Now, let's talk about the key issues Kenyans voted on to determine who leads them at the governorship and then the presidential as well. What are the key issues that Kenyans voted on?
Well, this is one election that was primarily now looking at the economy. So we've got a high cost of living, and you can imagine this is not just in Kenya, it's globally because of what we are seeing. High cost of oil globally, high cost of food inputs globally with the war in Ukraine and all. So people were really concerned about the high cost of living and the state of the economy. There's a lot that has been done by the current and outgoing administration and the previous administration as well on big infrastructure projects. So we have big roads that have been constructed. We have dams. We have others that have been constructed. But the issues that really touch on people's pockets, and these would be issues to do with the cost of living, the cost of healthcare, the cost of taking your children to school. Those ones are the ones that now became the main thrust of this particular political campaign. And that is what people are actually voting on. And that's what people are expecting the next government to address. And the leading campaigns, this is Raila Odinga and William Ruto, the leading candidates, have both released their manifesto, which is focusing on how to address the issues of the people.
Now, let's contextualize the conversation, and I'll bring you back to the issues people are voting on. Here we have a deputy president who is contesting and is not a favorite of the sitting president, and then a once fierce opponent of the sitting president who is now a friend of the president. The dynamics, how did these happen?
Well, it's been much of drama for the last 5 years in this country. So what happened is the president and his deputy have actually ruled for 10 years. And they came together in 2013. They went on a campaign. They won. They were sworn in as president and deputy. And then they also got re-elected in 2017 for a second term. However, because of what you've described, the fierce opposition leader, Raila Odinga, 2018's election was also heavily disputed. So the president chose to break ranks, bridge ranks as well with the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, in what led to what was called a handshake. So that coming together did not really sit well with the deputy president, who then now went off on a campaign, starting to campaign for himself for this election. So the last 5 years have seen the president and the opposition leader working together as brothers, calling each other brothers, running a government together without the opposition leader being officially in government, and the deputy president still in office as deputy president, but going all out to campaign for his election in this election. So it has been like that. We have a sitting deputy president who is acting as the opposition leader, and we have an opposition leader who is acting as a quasi-deputy president. Drama.
Interesting. For the economic issues that you spoke about, have you, as citizens of the country, been able to enjoy some, let's say, concessions or subsidies in any way by the government? And if there have been, because I was following some story, I believe, on BBC where they made a point that some subsidies, some concessions are being made by the government, but as to the sustainability of these projects that are being embarked by the government, some see it as a vote-buying exercise. You are there. What do you make of these concessions being made by government?
Well, there are 3 subsidies that are in place. One is a fertilizer subsidy, which was there even before in the first administration of this government, and then it collapsed. Then it was reintroduced, but it was reintroduced in a way that is not sustainable in terms of not all farmers who deserve access to the fertilizer subsidy have been able to get access to this fertilizer, which is at subsidized prices. So that's one. The second one is called a fuel subsidy. And it's called a fuel subsidy in very many ways. We argue in the media that it is not a subsidy, because what it is for every liter of fuel that we buy, we pay a certain levy that should go to a kitty that is then ring-fenced. So whenever there's some price fluctuation, then that kitty kicks in. So it covers the balance. So that has been in place for about 8 months, about a year now. The third one was rolled out just 2 weeks before the election, which was on the price of maize flour. So maize flour is a staple in this country, and the prices had shot up to 3 times the original price. And then the government now decided that they were going to work with the maize millers to bring down the price. So it's a subsidy that is an actual proper subsidy, which is supposed to last for 48 days, which is supposed to be just a week after the election. We saw from the government over the weekend, which was then withdrawn, that they were running out of cash from the National Treasury, so they were suspending that maize flour subsidy. But then the agriculture minister, who had issued that communication, later reversed and said that was fake. It was not from him at all, which obviously we know it had come from him.
Now, would you describe the latter move when it comes to the cereals as that of a vote buying exercise to woo people to vote for the government? In this respect, Raila Odinga.
Well, there are those that argue that it was, like an exercise to woo voters to one side. However, I'd say the electorate is far beyond that in terms of they cannot be easily hoodwinked. So it may have worked in one way in terms of, just getting people to see that this government is responsive. But I think the greater thing that it was doing is to avoid any instances of people politicizing the high cost of maize flour to use it for political campaigns. So it was a situation basically to just keep everybody calm so that you don't see people out on the streets, so that there are not demonstrations on food prices, which would then now, of course, become a political issue, which would go the wrong way in terms of painting the government, the current government, and therefore the president's preferred successor in the wrong light. So it wasn't buying voters. I think it was mostly a security issue. Let there not be any riots during this time or food demonstrations during this time.
Now, let's go to the work of the Electoral Commission and the constitutional mandate to work within that 7 days. There are those who hold the view that holding on for that 7 days period before the announcement of who is the president-elect is dangerous, considering that we have seen some electoral violence before in Kenya, as much as Kenya excels when it comes to elections. Is that a recipe for chaos, or has there been any signs at all that it could pose a danger to the democracy?
Not so far. So this is the third election that's being held under the new constitution. Remember, Kenya enacted the new constitution in 2010 that has been hailed around the world as one of the best and most progressive. So the new constitution is the one that gives the Electoral Commission the 7 days within which to tally and determine the winner of a presidential election. And this was important because putting the timeline was important because then there's no gray about when a new president must be declared. And also there's no rush for when a new president must be declared. So everybody is aware and everybody knows that we have 7 days for the Electoral Commission to do its work. We have 7 days for everything, all the ducks to be put in a row. We have 7 days before, within which an election winner is declared. This, you must look at it in the context of what happened in 2007, which led to post-election violence in 2008. The Electoral Commission then took much longer to announce the winner of the election, and everybody, of course, was expecting that election to be declared as soon as possible. So it was taking long because of logistical issues and other challenges. And then the moment they declared the winner was then sworn in within an hour of that declaration. So the Constitution came in to cure all that. So the Electoral Commission has 7 days within which to work and receive all the results from across the country. Remember, we were talking about this particular time, there are 46,229 polling stations countrywide, and they have to get the results physically from each of those areas and then collect them and verify whether they have met the constitutional threshold, which is getting a 50% plus one vote, and then also getting 25% support in at least half of the counties, that is 24 counties of the 47 counties. So that's a process, and that process takes a while. Granted, there have been, some tensions, and it's not really tension, it's anxiety. As you're getting closer to getting to know the winner of the election, both sides are now getting anxious. But that is a constitutional provision that was meant to cure what happened previously, which led to violence.
Now, let's quickly turn to some interesting, headlines that the international media, Al Jazeera and co, and then local media as well, because initially, if you followed, you realize that local media were trying to forecast or predict who was winning with the numbers that were trickling in. From your estimation, Who is in the lead?
It's a very difficult one. It's actually a neck-to-neck race, this particular one. So let me just give you a context of what was happening. So in previous elections, the Electoral Commission was required, even now it's required by law, to have electronic transmission of the results of the presidential election from all the polling centers to the National Tallying Center. I'm sorry, there's a plane that's going to be passing above me, so it'll be noisy for a bit.
All right, that's fine.
And then in this particular election, the Electoral Commission decided to be more transparent. So, sorry, let that pass. So every polling station had a result, and then that result is being transmitted to the National Tallying Center. What the Electoral Commission decided to do this time is to make all that public. And it's available to anybody in the world, whether you're in Ghana, you're in Kazakhstan, or you're in Kenya. You have access to the election result of the president in Kenya. Now, there are 46,229 election results individually. So when it was uploaded onto a portal, the media started, of course, now tallying the results. Individuals started tallying the results. And then it got to a point where there were just too many numbers, people are tired, and you want to know whether you are sure of the tally that you have. So that's the context behind where you saw everybody had their own tally, everybody appeared to have a different number. But the actual winner can only be declared by the Electoral Commission after they do their own tabulation of all the votes that they receive or the results that they receive, and then they declare the winner. Now, can I tell who the winner is likely to be? It's actually a very difficult one. So far, it has been neck and neck between Raila Odinga and William Ruto. At one point, you see William Ruto leading up to crossing the 50% magic mark. The next one, when the more results come in, you see Raila Odinga then crossing the 50% mark, and of course, then Ruto dropping further down. So at some point, people just decided this is too much. It's causing so much anxiety. Let's follow what the IEBC is telling us. And what we have so far, it's still neck and neck. It's just a difference of about 200,000 votes or so in favor of William Ruto. But that is not yet formally declared because there are still more results that have been coming in.
Now, whilst waiting for the final declaration, there have been allegations of rigging and counter-allegations from both sides. Do you see that reflecting on the ground in terms of these allegations that are being made?
Actually, no. On the voting day itself, voting was largely very peaceful. There were no incidences where you could say that there's infiltration of polling stations by rival parties. On the counting itself, the counting for all positions went on largely peacefully. Well, there were incidences here and there of issues to do with the arithmetic. So what is entered on the result for maybe other seats, maybe the parliamentary seat, the governor seat, or member of the ward seat, there'd be some discrepancies, which have all been addressed mainly by the Commission. So the allegations that have come forward now to the National Tallying Center with regards to this particular election have basically been that the Commission's systems were infiltrated by some parties. The Commission itself has come out to say their systems are secure. Nobody has managed to infiltrate and affect the outcome of the election. Also, what we've seen is allegations that there are some agents, some polling agents, and some polling officials, electoral officials, who had been compromised. That hasn't been substantiated, and I guess this is what now, if there's a challenge to the result, this will be taken to the Supreme Court, and maybe that's where the evidence will be adduced. But so far, these are allegations, but we haven't seen anybody coming out with specific evidence that can stand in court.
All right, we have just 2 minutes to end the conversation. Can you give our listeners and our viewers a sense of the processes at the arrival of these numbers we are talking about? How electronic is the Kenyan voting systems that allows for the people to follow the numbers from the different polling stations which the Electoral Commission is supposed to declare to people, so as to cure that mischief about rigging.
So there's an electronic system in the country called the Kenya Integrated Elections Management System, KIEMS. And this is where you start with the voter registration. So every voter is registered using their biometric data, which is their 10 fingerprints, and then their national identity card. So that is then stored in a database. On the day of voting, every polling station countrywide, now you register, of course, per polling station. So every polling station countrywide then has access to the specific database for that polling station. So when I go as Eric to my polling station, I present my ID to identify myself, and then I place any of my on the biometric identification device, which then identifies me as a voter. And then that's when I'm given the physical ballot papers, which I tick or cross whoever I want to vote for. When that is complete, when the polls close, the physical ballots are counted. And then the physical results are entered onto a form, which is then entered by the election official and the agents of the various candidates, and they sign. That particular form that has now been signed by the election official and the agents of the particular candidates is then transmitted, is scanned by the electoral system, and it's immediately transmitted via computer, via internet rather, to the election center. When it gets to the election commission, then the election commission allows a mirror of it to be accessible to the public without interfering with the original source. So what we are seeing on the system itself, and anyone even in Ghana can go to, it's called forms.iebc.or.ke. If you go there, you'll be able to download any result from any polling station countrywide.
Interesting. Well, we would have to end the conversation here, my brother, and we thank you for these updates and for giving Ghanaians a sense of, the electoral process and how our brothers in Kenya would be feeling presently. And I've been speaking to my colleague in Kenya, who is a journalist and the host of the Situation Room on Spice FM in Kenya, Eric Latif. He joined me this morning. Eric, it's good to have had you this morning.
Good to have you as well. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, good day to you too as well. And so that's updates from Kenya, who went to the polls, and 7 days on, they're still waiting for the declaration by the Electoral Commission of that country.